Welcome to this episode of The Russell Brown Show. And this fine episode is going to be called The Wild Wild Text. Yes, in this fine project, I'm going to demonstrate two ways to work with text. As in this case, you can see that I have text on the outside of a shape. And in this project, I'm going to demonstrate how to put text inside of a shape, but on top of that, I'm going to demonstrate how to wrap the text around another shape. Okay, let's get started here with our branding text that we're going to put on the outside of this circle. Now, let's turn on our image in this case, and then let's draw a circle around this. Now, I happen to have some paths that I drew earlier. I drew these here with the ellipse tool found from the tool palette. Before I drew these, I moved my cursor up here to the options bar and made sure that Paths was selected, this icon, because I want to draw a path. And I also made sure that this icon was selected to add to path area. Then I drew this shape. I also want to point out that saving the paths over here in the Paths palette allows you to reuse these shapes as you continue your project. It's a great way to duplicate and copy the shapes over and over again. Okay, let's get started. Now I'm going to select my text tool. I happen to have some presets that I created earlier. In this case, I want to work with Mesquite 86 point. So I select this preset. And of course, you can create your own presets by clicking on this flyout arrow, New Tool Preset, right here. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to dismiss this by clicking away from it, then move into my work area and move my cursor over my path. Of course, just for review's sake, you know that you move your cursor over the path and this icon appears, allowing you to place your text on the path. And of course, if you move it inside the path and click, you'll then be typing and placing your text inside of that shape. But we're going to start with text on a path. Clicking on this position right here at the top, you'll also notice that I have this text set for centered. Now I start to type. The circle star. Just like that. Okay, let's talk about controlling this text. First, I'm going to click here with the text right here at the top. I'm going to show you the easiest way to control text that's been centered in this case. I'm going to hold down the Command key on the Macintosh or the Control key on the PC, and you notice that the icon changes to this double arrow. Okay? All we have to do now is click and hold, and then move the text to the left or to the right, just like this. It actually has a little snapping point back here in the middle, and I'm going to snap it right to that point. Now, how do you control the starting point and the ending point for this line of text? That's down here at the base. Once again, hold down your Command key on the Macintosh or your Control key on the PC, and you'll see this icon appear with the arrow pointing to the right. That means you're about to adjust the starting point. If I click and hold, then move to the left, you notice that I'm adjusting the start point. What's left back down here at the bottom is the end point. Once again, with the Command key or Control key, click and hold on that, and then move this off this way. You notice that if you move too far, you start to cut off words. If you extend this a little further, you then can see the whole line of text. I'm going to balance this until my text appears right there in the middle. So that's perfect. Okay, now it's time to add our second line of text. But remember, that text is inverted and it's on the bottom. Okay, so I want to have a second copy of this path. What did I say? Over here in the Paths palette, all you have to do is to click here on the circle text path that I created earlier, and I now have an instant duplicate of it. It's that easy. Now all I have to do is move back into my work area and click here at the base. And I now have a new path. I'll even go to the Layers palette and show you that here is layer number 1, a brand new layer with text. Okay, now all we have to do is add the text and graphics on this path. Winery. And a couple little graphics on the end, just like that. We've got our final line of text in, but as you notice, it's upside down. And in this particular project, I want the text to invert and flip the other way. Okay, how do I do this? I'm going to place my cursor here in the middle. Then I'm going to hold down my Command key on the Macintosh or my Control key on the PC once again, and you get this icon that appears. Then you click and hold, and you gently move into the inside of the circle, just like that. Did you see that? The text has inverted and now has flipped, and it's on the base of the inside of the circle. I'm going to position this until it snaps here in the middle, then I'm going to let go. And now I'm going to double click here from the Layers palette right on this icon. By double clicking on the icon, it automatically selects all the text within that group. It's a great tip and technique. Okay, now let's bring open my character and paragraph palettes here from the options bar. This is when the secret reveals itself, how to get this text to appear correctly. And it's down here. If I move my cursor over this, you can see Set the Baseline Shift. And all I have to do is click on this once, and of course, it highlights the value within this box, and it allows me to adjust it. I find this is the easiest way to make adjustments within the character dialog. Click on the icon, just like this, to highlight it, and then use the arrow keys to adjust this. I'm going to use the down arrow key to increase the minus value here, just like this. Then I'm going to hold down the Shift key to jump this even faster with a greater jump in increment, just like that. And here I am, down at a minus 64. This looks perfect. I move my cursor in, set this in like this, looks great. However, I think I want to do a little bit of tracking to this. I'm going to do a Select All again, Command A or Control A, and then I'm going to move over here and select my tracking values right here. And once again, did you notice I selected the icon here, which highlights the value, and then I can start to increase the value just like this. That looks great. Okay, what's next? Let's do a little tracking on the upper text, the circle star. I'm going to commit this text here with the checkbox in the upper right-hand corner, just like that. Then I'm going to double click here on the circle star to select this text, go back to my character palette, select my tracking, and let's increase this just a bit to right about there. That looks great. Okay, we're on the move. We have completed our project here. Let's commit this text. That's project number 1, how to get text onto a path. Let's talk about putting text inside of a path. Let's dismiss this for a moment. Let's turn these off, and let's start our second project. And it starts here with this star. We want to wrap some text around this star so it looks like this. And we're going to do it in a very special way. If you notice, this text is justified. And you notice something unusual about the justification. The font size is changing based upon its location within the design. How did he do that? Well, let's stay tuned and find out. Let's turn that off, go to our Paths palette, and open up our path here that we're going to use for our text. Okay, let's now review some of the things we need to know about placing text inside of a shape. Of course, you move your cursor inside the shape and the icon turns to this shape, which indicates that we can place the text inside. But before I do that, I'm going to go up here to my options bar and select one of my presets. In this case, I want to use 20-point Mesquite, and I'm going to click on it just like this. Now my settings are all set for 20-point Mesquite. I can put this in, and now I just start to type the circle star. I'm going to put an extra space at the end of circle star. Then I'm going to do a Select All, Command A on the Macintosh or Control A on the PC, and then I'm going to copy it into my clipboard. Then I'm going to go ahead and continue to make multiple copies within my image like this. I want to fill the space with text. And in fact, I'm going to stop here, do a Select All again, copy it again, and then continue to paste it. Then it'll paste in a little bit faster. Okay, we now have our box filled with text. Let's review through some of the ways that you can wrap text around objects that overlap this area. So I'm going to move down here and select here this icon for the ellipse tool found in the tool palette. Now watch this carefully. If you didn't know this is possible, you'll think it's cool for a few moments. So let me do it. If I move up here to the options bar and select this icon, subtract from path area. Do you see this? Just like that. I can now go back into my work area and watch this carefully, because you might not believe it, but I can click and drag over this, and it then subtracts that shape from the outer boundaries, and the text wraps around the shape. Pretty amazing. And you can continue to add additional shapes and subtract from the original square. Okay, that's cool. But did you notice that it will only subtract the shape if the shape intersects the outer boundary of the box? Let me demonstrate this. If I were to draw a shape inside the center of this area and not touch the outside edge, it does not create a hole in the middle of this box. Did you see that? It only works if you touch the edge like this. Okay, so I said to myself, how do we solve this? What if I wanted a donut hole right in the middle of this area? Well, if you did, then you'd have to go back in time all the way back to the point where we did not have any text at all. We'd have to load up our box again, and we'd have to draw our shape first, just like this. Then we'd have to select, for example, here the rectangle tool, and we'd have to draw a very thin and small little box. And we'd have to draw this little box so that it intersects the inner shape and the outer shape, and it also must be set to subtract from path. Okay, those are all critical. For now, we can go in here and move our text tool inside this area and click. Then we can paste our text in again. Aha! So that's the secret to getting the text to wrap around a shape that's inside of your original drawn shape. You must connect the two. So if you have a project that requires this, that's what you have to do first. Now, in my project, my star actually touches the edge, so it's not a problem. So let's go back here, and let's bring back our box, and let's start our project. As we saw, we placed our text on the inside, and we pasted our text in, just like this. Then we turned on our graphic here, in this case, our star graphic right here, and we wanted our text to wrap around this. We go back to our text tool here and select our text layer here, and we now want to subtract from this. In this particular case, I want the shape of a star. So I'm going to select here from the tool palette and move down here to Custom Shape tool. Then I can move up here and select my custom shape of a star. Of course, if you do not have a star available in your set, don't forget you have a huge library of shapes that ship with Photoshop, and you can load them here. So I loaded up my graphic shapes and I found a star. I selected the star, and then I can draw it. As you saw earlier, make sure that the subtract from path area is selected. Then start to draw your star over your selected text box here. So I'm clicking and dragging. I'm going to hold down the Shift key to constrain this, and the spacebar key so I can reposition and move it. And I get it to a point that it's about the same size as my existing star graphic. Then I let go. Did you see that? It now is wrapping around. But did you also notice up here at the very top, I made sure that the tip of the star touches the edge so that it ensures I don't have to draw that little line connecting the two. This looks great, but we need to finish this off with my final tip and technique. And it's about justifying text in a really creative way. I'm going to select my text tool. I'm going to double click here in the Layers palette so all my text is selected. Then I'm going to go up to the View menu and down to Extras and select here to hide the images. It's Command H on the Macintosh or Control H on the PC. Hides the selections, but it's still selecting the text. Now let's bring up our tool palettes here from the options bar for character and paragraph. And in this case, I said I was going to show you a special technique for justifying this text. Here under the paragraph menu, I'm going to select justification. Now that wasn't the trick. The trick is to get rid of these gaping little rivers and holes in the text and get this graphic effect where the text will change its size and shape based upon the area that it's flowing into. I do that here from this flyout arrow and select justification. So here's the trick. I'm going to change the glyph scaling to a minimum value of 50%, and I'm going to select over here for the maximum value and set that to 200. The combination of the minimum and maximum for the glyph scaling and then clicking OK will then flow the text around the shape. Notice that some words appear larger and some words appear smaller depending upon their position. The final thing I'm going to do is adjust here back in the character palette. Let's say, for example, let's adjust the tracking. Using my arrow key here, I can then track this text up or down, and notice how the word here in the center, the or circle, changes its position, and I get different types of coloration to the text as I adjust this. You can also here click the size of the text and start to adjust this and get yet more effects. That looks pretty interesting right there. I'm going to leave this where it is. Then I'm going to dismiss this. The final thing I want to do is change the color of this text. I'm going to go in here and make it a soft gray, just like this, by clicking this small color patch here in the options bar, then selecting the color from my color picker and clicking OK. There you have it. I've completed two really interesting ways to work with wild text. Of course here with text inside of a shape, and of course here with text on the outside of a shape. Give these techniques a try the next time you're in the wild text.